coming to you from Jezero crater on the surface of Mars. This is Mr. C.
7th graders, happy Aloha Friday to you. We've got the weekend coming up, and I should probably start off with a knock-knock joke. I haven't done a knock-knock joke, in quite some time, so here we go. Knock-knock. Who's there? Gladys. Gladys who? Gladys a weekend. No homework. I almost blew that, so anyway. Pretty dumb, Mr. C. I know. Hey, don't forget the Constellations over the weekend. I think we'll have some relatively clear skies in the evening. My goodness, we've had March come in like a lion, I've told you, but April has been like a lion. Windy days this week. But anyway, the point is it gets a lot of dust up in the air, and it makes the sky viewing not so good. So anyway, give it a try anyway. You've got a number of days to work with the constellations, probably a couple of weeks, but remember, we're gradually losing Orion in the west because the sun is setting later and later, and therefore it's light longer and longer. Hello, we're past the equinox, we're moving toward the solstice, June 21st, summer solstice. So a couple of months away from the solstice, but we're getting more and more light. And on June 21st-ish, it'll be the longest day in the northern hemisphere. The sun will come up earlier and set later than any other day in the year. So, and down in Australia, they'll have their shortest day, winter solstice. Sun will come up the latest it comes up and set the earliest. So anyway, the constellations overhead 8:15-ish. Overhead we've got the Big Dipper and its handle, the arc. The arc points to Arcturus, the fourth brightest star, and the Dipper stars on the outside point to the north. Forget never eat sour watermelons. To the north, and way in the north you can see a dimish star, pretty dim, not very bright, but its claim to fame is it's positioned over the North Pole. Therefore, it's Polaris, the pole star. So anyway, that's the Big Dipper and the two stars associated with it. And then in the west, Orion and the belt stars pointing somewhat down to the brightest star we can see, Sirius. So anyway, all of that. Hey, you need your white sheet out. You need your journal out. So if you'll take all of that. Now, I want to offer praise to God, and I want to do this. It's Mr. Moonhead's cousin, Mr. Earth, and a belated, I can't even see, a belated happy Earth Day to you. So, Northern Hemisphere, so happy Earth Day. And I want to point out a couple of things while I've got it in my hands. The ring of fire right there, where a lot of earthquakes occur, and the mid-ocean ridge, the mid-Atlantic ridge. So on a belated Earth Day was Thursday, actually yesterday, but I'm taping this on Thursday afternoon, late afternoon. So it actually is Earth Day when I'm taping this, but when you see this, it will not be Earth Day. So it will be belated Earth Day. And I want to offer praise to God for the way He created the earth, all of the just rights, the just right atmosphere, just right amount of water, just the right ratio of land to water, just the right amount of plants that produce the right amount of oxygen, and the right ratio of nitrogen to oxygen in the atmosphere, right temperature because of the right distance from the sun, the right size star, the sun, all of the just rights that God did when he created the earth. It says in Psalm 24:1, it says, the earth is the Lord's and all it contains, the world and those who dwell in it. It is his. And in Genesis, by the way, this is not the message you normally get for Earth Day. It's usually a secular message, no thought or hint that the earth is God's, and it is. The earth is the Lord's. And what did he tell Adam to do? He told him to, the Hebrew word is a word that means to keep it, to protect it, to preserve it. And what synonym do we use in connection with Earth Day? Conservation, conserve, save it. So God wants us to protect it and save it. Now, he's the one who put the fossil minerals in the crust, including coal and oil. Even though some politicians say, oh no, you can't, not too much coal, not too much oil, God put it there for us to use, to get energy out of, so it's okay. And we can't put enough carbon dioxide up in the atmosphere to make a dent, like some politicians tell us. Are you serious? The atmosphere can handle so much CO2. And it ain't that old. Remember what Charles Lyell tried to do? Remember what he tried to do? Charles Lyell tried to posit the idea, the lie, because he didn't have data for this, and we still don't, that the earth is old. The Great Flood put down all the sedimentary layers rapidly and didn't occur that many thousands of years ago. And in the creation days, where it says, on this day he made that, and this day he made that, 6 days. Evening and morning, 24-hour periods. So, nice try, Charles Lyell. It didn't work. He knows it now. He went to eternity in 1875. He's very, very aware that the earth ain't that old. So, and that there's well over 100 evidences that it's young. Thousands of years, not millions and billions. Don't have time to go over them all right now, but the two biggies are layers of sediment under every continent, fossils under every continent. Billions of dead things, fossils, that are buried in rock layers that were put there or laid down by water. That would be the GGF. Anyway, didn't work, Charles Lyell. And Dr. Jay Gould, who wasn't a Christian and wasn't a creationist, said, I told you already what he said. He said Charles Lyell didn't have science to back up his idea. He pretended like he did, but he didn't. So he just kept saying over and over that it's old, and now geologists have bought that. And it's in science textbooks without data, without proof, but it's just repeated over and over. So because it's repeated over and over, does that make it so? No, of course not. So anyway, tried to trick us, didn't work. Now, you had some homework. You're going to put your name, date, period on your homework and pass it in. Okay, you had to work on the 3 kinds of tectonic plate movement. You'll want to put this in your journal too. So you'll want to put this in your journal. Now, you don't have any weekend homework, but if you were bored out of your brain, you might stick these 3 drawings, diagrams, in your journal and label them. There's 3 kinds of plate tectonics, and it's caused by rapid continental drift. So First, there, I'll do this. My hand, each hand represents a tectonic plate. There's sideways movement past each other. Remember, the plates are now moving 1 to 10-ish centimeters a year. Not much, but the pressure and stress builds up over the decades. So the plates get bent and bent and bent, and then they break. And when they break, it causes shake, vibration, earthquake. So anyway, as they slide, there's always little bitty earthquakes as they slide. But when they lock up because of rough edges and then break free, when they break free, that's when you get an earthquake, bigger earthquake. And sometimes they lock up for not just decades, but centuries. And there's a lot of stress that's built up, and when they break, it's a big break. And then you get an 8, 7, 8, or 9, on the earthquake scale, and it causes tremendous shake on the crust. And if there are any cities around, it shakes the buildings. Sometimes they come down, and sometimes there are tsunamis, big waves, if the earthquake occurs near a coastal area like Japan. So that has frequent tsunamis. So anyway, one kind of plate movement, it's called translation or a transform fault. Translation. Do that with your hands and say that. It'll help you remember it. Mr. Phillips encouraging it. So it's translation. Do it again. Translation. Sideways plate movement past each other. Second kind of plate movement, it's called convergent. They converge. So convergent. They ram into each other, sometimes dive under each other, sometimes push up mountains. Convergent. They come together. So say that. Get your hands out there. Your pretend plates. Do it with me. Say it out loud. It'll help you remember it. Convergent. And you could do mountains, like the Andes Mountains, shoved up that way. Or sometimes one plate dives under another, melts a rock, and up comes a volcano as magma comes up and lava forms a volcano. So convergent, mountains up, subduction, melt the rock, volcano up. So translation, convergent, they come into each other. What's the opposite of convergent? Convergent. Divergent, they pull apart. Divergent, the plates pull apart, like in the Rift Valley of Africa. You can actually walk right through an area. You saw it in your book, the Rift Valley photo, if you paid attention to it, on the Divergent page, where the plates are pulling apart. Hands up, plates up, do it with me. So it's divergent, they move apart. Divergent, divergent. One more time, do it with me, out loud. Divergent. Like in the Rift Valley of Africa, where the plates are pulling apart. There are other places as well, like under the Atlantic Ocean, down at the bottom, and it's called sea floor spreading. So you could do it like this. There's the ocean. Sea floor spreading. Sea floor spreading is a divergent kind of plate movement. So anyway, I think you've got those translations, sideways, Convergent, they ram into each other. Or Divergent, like the Rift Valley. Or like seafloor spreading. Okay, gotta hustle. Daughter Laura is going to come in and give you a couple of tips that will really help you develop some characteristics that you don't even know you have. She's going to suggest, trying new things. So, and using grit, have courage, try new things. Here's a story for you. After my first year of teaching at SCA back in 1970, remember this is my 51st year. Back in 1970, I went into Mrs. Liebolt, the principal, the first principal at SCA, awesome woman. I went into her and said, Mrs. Liebolt, I can't do this anymore, it's too hard. Teaching is too hard. I can't do it. I was ready to quit after 1 year. See, you've taught for 51 years. I know, I almost quit. She encouraged me to keep going, keep trying, use some grit, have some courage. So she talked me into a second year, and it led into a third year and a fourth year, and 51 years. So I am modeling for you what I think my daughter Laura is going to say to you. In your journal, on your white sheet, write down 2 of the key things that she says, all designed to help you, to be an encouragement to you. So being a junior high is tough. It's hard. It takes courage. It takes grit. I kind of remember. So listen to her. She cares about you, and she wants to help you. So take it away, Laura, and use that journal and write down a tip or 2.
This is another episode of Your Magnificent Brain, Learning with Laura. And today I wanted to talk a little more about having a growth mindset. Last time, which was now many weeks ago, we talked about grit, and we talked about really looking at some of those messages that tell you what you are and are not capable of. We've linked that in to your superpower, the things that make you you, the things that you're naturally good at and that you enjoy. And we've also talked about leveling up, that putting in hard work, investing effort and time, all of those things can level up whatever it is you're working on. But one of the things that we haven't talked as much about is what happens when the things that you're working on are hard, when they don't necessarily come naturally to you. We've talked about how grit can help you continue to work when others might stop. But I think it's important to look at the internal aspects of that, what goes on in our brain when we're stuck in a fixed mindset. And a fixed mindset is basically the idea that you are you. You're good at math. You're not good at math. You're good at sports. You're not good at sports. It basically takes you and defines you by all these different criteria, basically, that are unchangeable. These ideas that you're either this way or that you're that way. And there's no changing it. A growth mindset takes that idea and says, no, I may not be good at this sport yet, but I have the possibility of improving. I can take my time, effort, energy, work on whatever that is, and I will improve over time. Last time we talked about we're constantly in a state of transformation. We are not who we were last week. And that's actually a great thing, because it means that we're not stuck, we're not static, we are constantly able to make a change, we're constantly able to make a new choice, or to just redirect our energy into gaining capacity in a certain way. We have natural capabilities, but we can also master capabilities that we don't have right now in the future. I had a quote I wanted to share. It was from Walt Disney animator Walt Staunchfield. And it goes, "We all have 10,000 bad drawings in us. The sooner we get them out, the better." And what I took away from that quote is that everyone, no matter how talented, no matter how naturally able, they have to start at the beginning. They have to work at whatever it is that they end up doing. If we're talking about basketball players, people, artists, people who are in business, everyone starts at the beginning, where they go from entry level, not knowing much of anything, to mastering a concept. And it's over time. It's part of that journey. But I think looking at actors who are out there doing amazing work, looking at musicians who can play the drums what we miss is the hours and hours of hard work that went into getting good at that. We miss all of the difficult times, the times that they really wanted to give up, that they felt like they would never get anywhere with something. And I think it's powerful to remind yourself, as you're starting out in whatever area that you want to work to get better at, that other people have been there too. Other people have walked that same road, and it was a struggle for them too. And I think also then combining that with, no one can do things exactly how you can. No one sees the world exactly how you do. And so whatever areas you end up expanding and growing in, you bring your own unique viewpoint, your own unique memories, your own unique way of seeing the world to bear in whatever area that is. And I'm not just talking about career-wise, I'm really talking about any area of interest, any hobby, anything that you want to get better at, or even learn more about. So that first step is really choosing to start and reminding yourself that as you start, as you learn, you will make mistakes. You will absolutely go into that situation not knowing everything right away. And those type of things are learned over time. So for instance, I'm actually in the process of exploring the writing field. And as I started doing that, there was a lot of things that I didn't know. I had to learn. I read craft books. I read books that other people write, and I analyze what it is I'm seeing. I listen to writers when they talk about craft, when they talk about what it is they're doing, when they talk about language and viewpoint. I listen. And I also get in touch with who I am and what stories I want to tell. And I think recognizing that as we do that, we do have to go through that learning curve, whatever it looks like. It may be harder for you than it is for others. You may feel like you're out of step, or you're seeing something in a different way, and that's actually okay. All the unique ways in which you view life, that actually is part of what you bring to any given area. I wanted to talk a little more about then taking that first step, the step of getting into a situation that doesn't feel comfortable, where you don't feel like you have expertise, where you don't feel like you're able to be successful. Sometimes walking into that and just showing up and saying, okay, I'm a level 0 here. I don't know anything about this. And being open and learning and exploring and seeing what's out there, that can be so powerful. Often we avoid the things that we have no experience with, that we are uncomfortable with. And actually learning by stepping out into something that we're completely unfamiliar can challenge us, can change our viewpoint in many different ways than just sticking with something that we've done before. We don't develop ourselves as much when we stick with what's tried and true and what you know that you're good at. I also wanted to talk about, we've talked previously about what it is, the messages we tell ourselves, the kind of subconscious messages that go on in our head, the things that tell us what we are capable of, what we're not, the things that, potentially might be trying to keep us safe, but also keep us from trying new things. And so I just encourage you all to listen to yourself when you have an experience that's new and that might be a little intimidating. Listen to the messages that you're telling yourself and potentially reframe, redirect them, because we have that power. There are ideas, there are messages that we may have internalized by outside people telling us certain things, or we may truly believe them, but that doesn't mean that they're true. Even if we believe something to be true about ourselves and what we're capable of, often those messages just hold us back. They're what are known as a limiting belief, a belief about ourselves that keeps us from moving forward, keeps us from changing dynamically. And so there's words that you might have heard yourself say before, like, I can't do it. That's just not my gifting. I'm afraid of making a mistake. And I know we've talked about mistakes before. Mistakes are actually how we learn. When we make a mistake, we are able to draw our attention to the thing that we need to work on. The things that we get right, we often don't have to work as much on. We don't have to put as much attention to. We can move on to the things that really do need our focus. And what I'd say, instead of saying those type of fixed mindset things, try changing how you talk to yourself into a more growth mindset vocabulary. For instance, telling yourself, it's okay that I didn't do well at that. I'm still learning and I can keep trying. Or let's see what I'm capable of. Give it a try. Take a leap. See what's possible. You don't know until you've actually given it a try. You might have an idea of what it is that you'd enjoy, that you're capable of, the skills that you have, but until you try, you won't know what you're capable of. So push those boundaries of what you are capable of accomplishing. And then also remind yourself that mistakes are how you learn. You may not be great at that yet, but you can become better at it. And you may not be able to do that now, but as you walk that path of learning and trying and working to listen to what mentors have to say, what experts have to say, do some reading on the subject in which you're interested in, start looking at different exercises you can do to actually practice something. And again, this isn't just in areas that you're naturally good at, and the areas that you're naturally gravitating towards. Sometimes just trying something brand new that you've never even heard of. When you hear a friend is interested in taking a pottery class or learning a new sport that you've never tried, all of those things can help expand, grow you, and really show you what you're capable of. And all of these things, with trying and learning from your mistakes, with telling yourself you can do something, all of those things will help, especially in areas in which you struggle. Because as you find areas that you struggle, focusing on them, identifying the areas in which you need to work on to improve, if you tell yourself, instead of, I can't do this, that you tell yourself, I can't do this right now, but I am capable of doing it. That's where the power is. You're empowering yourself to try and see what you can do. So that's it for now. Thanks so much for listening. I hope that this was helpful. As I said last time, part of the reason why I'm doing these lectures is I want to pass on to you all some things that I wish that I had known earlier, because they would have helped in so many ways. And I hope there's some takeaways here that you can use in your current life, but also in the future. In my next lecture, I'll be chatting about with you about creativity and problem solving, and how we can use the building blocks of what we've already talked about in order to find creative solutions to things. I hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you in several more weeks.